The Eye of the Sheep. From 1996 to 1997, I served as a Fulbright Scholar in Journalism and Mass Communication in the Central Asian Republic of Kyrgyzstan. My wife, Stephanie, gamely came along too, and my son Richard joined us for the summer. In August 1997, Richard and I spent a few days relaxing on the beach at Cholpan Ata, a resort town on Kyrgyzstan's great mountain lake, Issyk Kul. On our last night, we drove out to a village for a traditional Kyrgyz feast with colleagues from the university journalism faculty and their relatives. Stephanie came out from Bishkek to join us. I'd completed my second semester of teaching in June, so the feast was in my honor. This was an offer you definitely can't refuse, but I'd heard enough about such occasions from Western colleagues that I approached it with trepidation. The family put on a huge spread, and we started eating at about 7 p.m. In the backyard, they'd slaughtered a sheep and were boiling it over an open fire. Right on schedule at 10 p.m., they brought in the beshbarmak, 5 fingers, boiled mutton served with noodles, so called because it is traditionally eaten with the fingers. And I was presented with the sheep's head. As the honored guest, I was supposed to carve it up and distribute slices to the company at the table. It's not a random process because tradition determines who gets which part of the head. Richard, as the youngest at the table, was expected to eat an ear, on the assumption that by doing so, he would be more likely to listen to adult advice. He refused, of course. I don't think they seriously expected me to do the carving, but I gamely chopped at the thing for a few minutes before passing it off to another guest who knew what to do. Regular power outages were common, particularly in rural areas, so I was not surprised when the lights went out a couple of minutes later. I breathed a short sigh of relief, thinking I'd been rescued from eating the part destined for the honored guest. However, soon after they brought in oil lamps, the lights came back on, and I smiled through clenched teeth as I was presented with one of the eyes. It was a bit late to claim an allergy to mutton, so I tried to swallow it without thinking about what I was eating. It nearly came right back up, but a quick swig of cognac did the trick. Richard sat looking at me in amazement. "Dad, how did it taste?" he asked. I just gulped. Heads and eyes apart, it was an enjoyable evening, enlivened by one guest who was drunk when we arrived and who kept on drinking, presumably also in my honor, and trying to speak French. About 15 of us stayed in the house that night. When they served the innards and boiled mutton again for breakfast, I felt I could now politely refuse. "Just some bread and tea, please," I said.